was just a bobblehead on a bus, because another person was leading the entourage, leading what we were doing, leading in charge of the trip. And if I wasn't there, another person would have been in my seat, and there would have been no more results produced if I wasn't there, if I was there. I mean, just a bobblehead on a bus. So that's when I struck out and said, well, let's go to Haiti, because nobody's going to Haiti yet. And I wanted to not be a bobblehead on a bus. I wanted to go find out something to do. And at Haiti, that was eye-opening, and that's where the idea of the Haiti food drive popped. And then that gave me something to actually do and make a difference.
Welcome to Empowering Leadership, a podcast from Dorrier Underwood. Join us as we explore new perspectives on leadership and discover what it takes to be effective as a leader. Here's your host, Doug McVadon.
My guest today on the Empowering Leadership podcast is an old friend and a former client. And well, you're not that old yet, Joe, but I want to welcome you to the podcast and really look forward to unpacking what is a multi-decade story of your association with Dorrier Underwood and our association with you. So welcome.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. And the first thing I would say is being old is a relative concept.
That's right. That's right. There's somebody that said it's a mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
You got it. You got it.
Well, so let's go back in time. Speaking of age, and all the way back to where you started out, which was in Richmond, Virginia, right? And we call you Joe, but I imagine it's Joseph to begin with, right?
It is correct. Yes, indeed.
So tell us a little bit about your beginnings.
I grew up in a traditional all-white neighborhood, went to an all-white high school, and went to pretty much an all-white men's college at the time. So I grew up with that kind of a historical background and that kind of a view on life. Fortunately, as our two daughters were going into their early years and teenage years, they were making me and my wife aware that there was more to the world than the way that we grew up. So they kind of led us in opening our eyes about wonderful people of different backgrounds. And I've just grown a lot in that over the years, and am happy to be where I am now. And I've learned a lot about that, have become curious in both exploring that and wanting to educate other people about that. So that's just part of the journey. I did a business career for a number of years, taught high school for 6 years as kind of a segue into full retirement. And then I've been retired about 12 years, and I've had a lot of fun doing all kinds of volunteer work.
Well, Joe, let's go back to the business part of your career, because that's where we became acquainted when you were an executive at the Harris Teeter grocery store chain. And that was a certain kind of peak in your career in terms of accountability and responsibility and the scope and the scale of what you were running there.
The way that we met was that I was in a corporation that was needed to go through a lot of changes. A lot of changes needed to be made to prepare it to be competitive in the future. And that was kind of my job, is bringing about those changes. And I had to work with a culture that was already there, which was not progressive and not trying to go in that direction. And so I needed a lot of help on how to navigate that culture and to learn how to teach people to love their job. I mean, I had to go through retraining from you folks, from Dorrier Underwood, and got to the point that I realized it was so much better to have people that love doing their job than to be demanding that they do their job. And if I could set their job up and treat them in a way that they actually loved it and felt part of a team and wanted to participate, the results would be far much better. Their lives would be happier, and my life would be happier also.
That's great. At that time, that was a big issue for a lot of companies, because that was all around the world. People were realizing that just getting people to comply, just forcing compliance, was not the winning formula. It was people winning the hearts and minds, you could say. Is that right?
Yes, it was very, very different. If I can use the term draconian, the corporation had somewhat of a draconian kind of culture. And to segue from that, a lot of nurturing, a lot of working on it. And we wanted to be an incredible place to shop back at the time. That was one of the visions we had, to become an incredible place to shop. We had kind of a roadmap to go down, all the things that we needed to do that we were not yet doing. But we also realized that in order to be an incredible place to shop, we had to be an incredible place to work. And that was really the challenge, trying to go from that draconian culture to a culture where people loved coming in and just were thrilled to be there and happy to be part of the team. That was a major change.
So you're talking about the kind of culture where you were punished if you did something wrong and you were instructed to improve, or else to one where you wanted to find out how people were doing. And, how do you feel about it? And how's your family back? Is everything okay? Is that what you mean? That kind of thing?
It was a culture where people were told exactly what to do. And they did exactly what they were told and nothing else. Because if they did anything else, they ran the risk of being criticized for doing something that they hadn't been told. Compare that to the culture of unleashing their creativity and encouraging them to use their own creativity and energy to do really, really wonderful things within some basic parameters. So that was the cultural shift we had to make, because if all they're doing is what they're told, there's no initiative on their own part. They're like robots. There's no chemistry. There's no enthusiasm. Where if they know that they can make changes that make sense, they're just happier with their own lives. They're much better interacting with customers. It's just a much more wonderful place for them to be at when they go to work.
And it sounds like, Joe, you had to discover this for yourself, that it wasn't just that, well, it would be great to be nice to people and I should be nicer and I should be kinder just because I should be kind. You actually discovered that that's how you get higher business results.
Yes, I did have to discover that for myself. Very definitely. Very definitely. I used to have the practice of walking a store and looking at, with the person that was responsible for that store and talking about all the things that were great and all the things that were not good, and then sitting down and asking them how they were doing and how their family was doing. And I learned from one of my employees that just frightened them, and that what I really needed to do was start with, how are you doing? Tell me about how your family's doing. Tell me about what do you have going on, et cetera, and then say, would you like to go walk the store with me? And you can tell me, what you think about what's going well and what's not going well. An entirely different perspective. So yes, I did have to transition from the traditional draconian, point out what they're doing wrong and take names and you better not do that again kind of approach, to let's focus on how we can just be doing continually improvement, your ideas and my improvement and my ideas. Let's work together to make this happen.
And you have something to say about how your job goes, is what you're essentially distinguishing there, versus your job is completely determined by your boss.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so that was an exciting set of revelations, but then ultimately you ended up moving on from that corporate career. So I want to jump ahead to where you've ended up. Obviously, you are a purpose-driven person. And I say that because anybody that would agree to teach high school after having a job in the corporate sector has got to have some motivation that I don't know about to be able to put yourself in that situation. Tell me about that decision.
Well, looking over my shoulder in the corporate career, I learned that what I had learned to do very well was build great teams and to help people achieve more than what they thought they could achieve and see them grow and prosper and develop. A lot of them became corporate officers. So I really liked doing that, working with people one-on-one, and it's kind of like changing their own paradigms about themselves. So they saw themselves as being able to do much more, and then they would go do it and be thrilled about it. So I was interested in doing the same thing with high school students in a classroom. Now, did that work out all that well initially? No, not at all. No.
Well, tell us some stories about that. Which high school was it? What did you teach?
Well, I will say the first 3 years I was a lamb to the slaughter. I was just because I came out of it. I came out of the corporate world. Yeah, people did what you asked them to do.
And then now you're dealing with high school students.
That's right. That's right. So I came out of the corporate world where not only people did what you asked them to do, but they were in an environment that, they kind of knew that if they were not diving for the ball and giving you their best, that they would be replaced with someone who would dive for the ball. So they always kind of knew that, and you had to make diving for the ball fun and not threatening. But I was surrounded by people that would dive for the ball, like on a basketball game. They would give it everything and enjoy doing it. And then when I got in high school, I had some students that would work, but I had a lot of students that just couldn't have cared less. And their reason for being was to make it difficult for me to teach those that wanted to live, wanted to learn. So I had to work my way through that. And that was totally by trial and error. I mean, just blind stepping on a landmine, having it blow up and say, well, I guess that doesn't work. I mean, it's just total trial and error. But I survived those 3 years. And after enough trial and error, through osmosis, I learned what it took, how to reach the high school students. And I will say it was the thing that I learned at the corporate world, but I just didn't transfer it over to the education world. What I learned was I had to show them that I loved them and I really cared for them first before I started trying to teach them or take them from this level to that level in anything. They weren't interested in anything I had to say until they knew that I really liked them and cared for them. And it was difficult for me because I'd never been around people that weren't really interested in their educations, that didn't want to learn, that didn't want to cooperate. And it was difficult for me to like those people. And so I probably showed that I didn't like them in my first couple of years there. But as I learned what their lives had been like and what they'd been through and why they were the way they were, which took a couple of years to learn that, then I was, I could see part of them that I hadn't seen before. I could see, who they really were, and I guess just kind of understand them better and handle them better and come at them from a more appreciative point of view than from a teaching point of view. I think hindsight was, in my first couple of years, I was more like the old corporate culture. You do this, or you're going to fail.
Yeah. You went back into reverted to your original behavior. Joe, tell me a story about one student. Just for, tell me about somebody that you remember and, the before and after story. I know I didn't ask you in advance to prepare one, but I'm sure you remember somebody you could tell me about.
Oh, sure. I mean, there were a lot of them. I had a student that used to wear an ankle bracelet for his his parole officer. Okay. He would have an ankle bracelet on. His file said he had anger management issues. Okay. Lots of teachers were kind of leery of him, but somehow or another, I was able to roll with that and to, kind of bond with him and just have a great time with that student. I mean, what
did you say to him? What did you say to him, for example? Because I could totally see, anger management, and you're in a room alone with this kid. I can see where a teacher.
I'm in the room with 30 other kids.
Well, you're the only adult, is what I mean. Oh, and he's, okay. Yeah.
I could just tell when he was getting uptight, and I wouldn't push him. I would, give him some space and be space. A lot of times I just asked him what he wanted to do. What do you want to do? Here's the project. How do you want to handle it? Or do you feel like working today? Or you just want to put your head down or whatever? And
did you say that? Did you say that sometime? Did sometime he just want to put his head down?
Sure.
And would you be all right with that? You didn't make him do anything else?
No, but see, here's the thing. If I allowed him to do that, pretty soon he'd pick it up and start participating.
Right.
Because everybody else was.
And you aren't making him do anything.
I'm not making him do anything. I'm just not making him do anything. Whereas first when I went there, if I had a kid like that, you need to do that or I'm sending you out.
You're out. Yeah,
you're out of here. I'm calling security. They're coming to get you out of class. That's the way I was the first couple of years. Then I gradually got to the point that each kid's different, and I could read each kid better because I wasn't being judgmental. I was really kind of like, what does this kid need? So I could say to him, you need to chill out for a while. You want to go read something else? You want to put your head down or whatever? Check back with me or I'll check back with you in 10 or 15 minutes and we'll see what you want to do or whatever. There were a lot of instances like that. And I will say again, when I first started teaching, a lot of these kids were from tough backgrounds and they were more interested in being disruptive than they were in learning. Yeah. And I really didn't have any idea how to handle it. I really did not have any idea how to handle it. And I was intimidated because I could have 15 or 20 18-year-olds in a class all of them looking at me as the enemy. Okay?
And some of them with ankle bracelets and anger management issues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looking at me as the enemy and the guy they wanted to mess up my afternoon, mess up my day. But over time, it got to the point that I could say to the teachers on my hall, hey, if you're having a bad time with any of your guys, if they're really giving you a rough time, just send them on down to my class. I'll handle them.
Really?
I don't know how I got there, but I got there.
Well, what did you say? I'm really curious. Let's stay with this for a minute because I think that's remarkable. So you were this formerly hard-nosed business executive. Probably the people brought you in thinking, good, he's a hard-nosed business executive. He's not going to take any guff off of these kids. But then that didn't work. It actually backfired. It actually totally backfired, right?
Totally backfired.
And so your method was connecting with them? Respecting them? What would you call it?
My method was surviving for 3 years.
Okay. But I mean the method that allowed you to say, if you're having trouble with so-and-so, you can send them down to my classroom. What was that? What did you know you were going to do? So here comes someone being sent to you from another teacher. Why are you confident you're going to be able to reach that person?
Depends on who walks in the door.
Okay.
Some of these kids, I would have known them. Okay. And had them in my classes.
All right.
And they were easy. Another child that I didn't know, I had to say, well, hey, how you doing? Grab a seat on over there and, just chill out and relax. You can see what we're doing. If you want to participate, that's fine. If not, just chill out and you got 21 minutes before the class is over and you'll be on your way. But so I was not trying to push them to do anything.
You really flipped completely over from here's what you're going to do, here's how it's going to be, and it's going to be my way or the highway, to I'm just here and you're going to determine how this is going to go, right? If you're just going to sit there, then that's what you're going to do.
Right.
And you were really clear at a certain point that they were going to actually do that anyway. I mean, you're not going to make them do anything anyway. So you kind of got in touch with reality.
And like sometimes I would compromise with them. In my typical classes, I would have 3 or 4 kids that were normal students, okay, and had some interest in what we were doing. I would have 8 or 9 kids that were kind of like what I would call the walking wounded. They had something wrong with them intellectually or whatever. They had special, what they call IEP programs, individual education programs, okay? And then I would have 8 or 9 gangster wannabes. That was the name. I would have 8 or 9 gangster wannabes in there, okay? So, sometimes with the classes, I would say to the whole class, and I was talking to the gangster wannabes, look, guys, you give me 60 minutes. These were 90-minute classes. You give me 60 minutes to work through this and teach it to the people that really want to learn. Then for the last 30 minutes, we'll put on ESPN Sports and watch what's going on with Kobe Bryant and blah, blah, blah. And they go, yes, sir, Mr. George, yes, sir. And so they'd be cool for like 60 minutes, And then and the classes I were teaching were like sports and entertainment marketing. So it was relevant, okay?
Yeah.
I would teach marketing number 1 and 2, and then sports and entertainment marketing 1 and 2. And the gangster wannabes were typically all in the sports and entertainment marketing classes.
Yeah.
So they were down with, hey, let's behave, give Mr. George a chance to do his thing there, and then we'll all watch, the ESPN basketball reviews or whatever. And that's all I needed. I mean, But when I first went in, I'd been taught, you've got to teach them for 90 minutes. You've got to teach for 90 minutes. And I went in trying to do that. And those kids couldn't handle 90 minutes of instruction. They just couldn't handle 90 minutes of instruction. But I didn't know that. I thought, but daggone, all the training I took, they said, teach them for 90 minutes. You got to have a lesson plan and grab them for 90 minutes. Don't give them any free time or else you'll have chaos on your hands. Brother, that did not work. It did not work. I had to go at their speed, give them some time to relax, catch their breath, have a little fun time. So, over the last 3 years, I learned how to make the learning process fun, how to make it fun for them.
Yes.
And it just went a lot better.
Well, so then after that, you decided to actually retire. So you had your second retirement, if you will, from teaching. And but since then, since I know you, I happen to know that you've been busier than ever. You've done more traveling. You've done more projects. You've connected with more people. So tell us about what you embarked on after that, because you really kind of gave your life a mission, didn't you?
You can't go from being an active person with a sense of purpose, either in business or in bringing these kids along. You can't go from having a sense of purpose to being a retired person without a sense of purpose. You've got to create your own sense of purpose because nobody's bringing it to you. You're just sitting at your desk, phone's not ringing, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So you have to create your own sense of purpose. So
and I guess maybe that might be all right with some people, but it's not okay with you. And it wasn't okay with a person who feels like you need to make a difference with your life.
Right. I do have friends that play golf 3 times a day. Okay. But that's not me. I feel that while I'm here, that doesn't give me a sense of purpose about making a difference and creating something. So I kind of had to create my own sense of purposes. And a lot of that came from doing church mission trips to like the ghettos in Kingston, Jamaica, or to Haiti, the Cap Haitian in Haiti, or places like that. And then
tell us a little bit before you move on to that. From that, tell us a little bit about the those missions.
The group in Kingston, Jamaica, was a group called Missionaries of the Poor, and it was Catholic priests and
maybe they were priest wannabes.
They were priest wannabes. Yes, indeed. They were priest wannabes. There's a term for it. I just don't know what that term is.
And maybe it's acolyte or something like that.
Could well be. Okay. But they were giving their lives to take care of the poorest of the poor, just the poorest of the poor, the people that were abandoned on the streets in the ghettos.
Wow.
And all of these new people came from really bad conditions where they were doing this as future priests. It pulled to their heartstrings, it pulled to their spirit, and also gave them camaraderie with other young men. And they had a place to live. They had something to belong to. They had a roof over their heads, and they got 3 meals a day. And they were dedicated to taking care of the poor, and they were happy. Okay. And they were happy. So I would go down there and work with them, and it always ground me, when I came back. Because I live in a very materialistic, consumer-driven society.
Yes.
And we all can't avoid that after a while. It catches up with you.
That's right.
But that would always ground me. And when I came back, it'd be much more peaceful and tranquil. So I did that for a while. And then I had kind of a breakthrough when I went to Haiti one time I went to Jamaica, and I realized that I was just a bobblehead on a bus, because another person was leading the entourage, leading what we were doing, leading in charge of the trip. And if I wasn't there, another person would have been in my seat, and there would have been no more results produced if I wasn't there, if I was there. I mean, just a bobblehead on a bus. So that's when I struck out and said, well, let's go to Haiti, because nobody's going to Haiti yet. And I wanted to not be a bobblehead on a bus. I wanted to go find out something to do. And at Haiti, that was eye-opening. And that's where the idea of the Haiti food drive popped. And then that gave me something to actually do and make a difference. And so
you did that for a period of years, right, Joe? Tell us a little bit about that project. So the Haiti food drive was what? What was that? What was the purpose, and what was the length of time?
Well, it's still going on now. I think I started it in 2001, and it's still going on now.
Wow, 20 years. Okay.
Yeah. But the purpose was to send food to the Catholic brothers.
Yes.
In the Haiti compound, because there wasn't enough food in Haiti at the time. And they also, with whatever food they had, they would feed people in their neighborhood, the children and their families, but they didn't have any food. My idea was to start a food drive where I could get church parishioners involved in bringing a bag of rice, or bringing a case of oatmeal, or in bringing this, or in bringing toothpaste, so on and so on, so that I could get the church members to fall in love with the people in Haiti, not just writing checks and sending money down there, but to actually get involved. I mean, the little kids from our school would do these big pictures, "We love you, Haiti," and draw pictures of themselves and their family. We put those in the boxes of food that people would be opening. So the idea was to do that, to get the church involved with the Haiti people, and get the Haiti people involved with the church, so that we had kind of not quite a sister relationship, but a relationship with them, more than just sending a container of food down. So whenever we'd go down there and the container would come up and be open, we'd take pictures of the Haitians unloading the food, and then they'd get a big board and write on the board, "We love you, St. Matthews," and hold that up for a picture. We'd send that back, and then we'd try and show those in the parish, like on a video screen, to show people what was going on, to create what I called a love affair, so that if the head priest that was in charge ever left, and a new guy that came in said, "Well, I don't want to do this Haiti food drive anymore," that the congregation would be in an uproar, and he wouldn't allow him to do that, by creating the love affair of the total congregation. So I was able to do that, but birthing something from nothing, getting it up to what I call critical mass, takes a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I had done that 4 years, because I had to go in and resell it every year. It wasn't a done deal. I had to go resell it every year to the top priest. But by the time I had gotten it through 4 years, I was ready to hand it off to some other guys. And I had the right people to hand it off to, and they just did a fabulous job with it, and they continued it. And now there's a school down in Cap-Haïtien, Haiti, inside this compound that has been funded by these people. It's just grown into a huge operation. Now it's called the Monsignor McSweeney World Hunger Drive. So it's gotten to be huge. We send about, 12 or 13 containers of food to Haiti. And I'm talking about seagoing containers on, those big containers.
The ones that are as big as a railroad car.
The ones you see, the ones you see parked off the LA coast out there waiting to get in.
Right.
So those things go to Haiti and all over the world. And then they've also morphed into doing one of these meal packing things where, like at the church, they'll pack 300,000 meals and then send them wherever they go. So it's morphed into something different, but it's great because I've always wanted it to. I like giving things to people that'll take it and run with it and take it further than what my vision was.
Well, that's the theme that's emerging here, is that the guy who, started out with the method of just demanding and, pushing and thinking that force was the way to produce results, you discovered really that that wasn't your true satisfaction.
Sure.
The way you really, you may have been effective to some degree, but the satisfying part is developing someone else to the point where you don't even need to be there. Isn't that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I've always used the analogy that, I used to really love being in the game and making things happen, but my job involved to what I would call being a coach, and the teams I built were so good that I could never get in the game. Nobody needed me. All I did was sit around on the sidelines and polish the trophies that they would bring me. I didn't have anything else to do once it became that good.
I love that. I love that picture, Joe. Who's that guy over on the sidelines polishing the trophies? Yeah. Who's that guy? That's Joe. He's the coach. He's the one that started, but he's the one that started this whole thing. So what I want to ask you is, what else have you started? Because you have started a couple of other things, right? I've heard of your response to what's been happening in the whole country with regard to racial justice. Right. You had a particular response to that, which you have, I think, now turned over. So tell us about that.
Oh, well, let me back up before that, if I can.
Okay, great.
One of the other things that I started was a ministry called Christians in Career Transition. That was back many years ago. And I think we were headed into one of the recessions. I don't remember which one it was. But I went to a large church, and I could tell that a lot of people were going to be laid off and the economy crashed. And our large church was a huge networking opportunity if people just opened their eyes and saw it as that and set that up to function that way. So I was able to create a ministry called Christians in Career Transition, and that's still going on now. That's still going on and doing a fabulous job in helping people re-enter the job market and find, the kind of work that is what they're really, really looking for, rather than being underemployed for the rest of their life. And that's the guys that are running that now just do a fabulous job with that. And I actually got back in that probably 4 or 5 years ago. I got back in it just as a counselor. I didn't want to run it. I got back in it as a counselor and did that for a couple of years. And again, moved on. Typically, once I've gotten something up and going, I don't like to stay there because it gets kind of boring. I'd rather go do something else. But I spent a couple of years there with them just being a counselor. And it was really good to see the work that they were doing. It was great.
That's really great. And so that is another example of...
Well, you see a need. You see a need that's going to be there, okay? you can see the coming need coming down the railroad track. Here it comes. It's going to hit us. And there's nothing there. So let's create something to help people get through that need.
And, wasn't that the original secret to your success with Harris Teeter running that distribution? You were the head of the distribution end, right? Which was you had to always be looking at what was about to happen that could stop things, right?
I was head of the marketing and the merchandising and the retail store operations and the distribution part. So I had to be aware of what was coming down the pike in terms of consumer demand.
Okay.
What consumers were going to want. And back at that time, we were what I would call a sleepy food store, not that different from Food Lion. We were just more expensive. So you had to kind of look out and see what was going on in the world and help Harris Teeter change their paradigm and get from here to there. So,
and they went for a whole style of grocery store that's now very popular, right? With the whole shopping experience and the deli bakery and the fancy decorations and special lighting. Now that's a normal.
Now that is, but that was a total reinvention. Absolutely a total reinvention. And the story behind that, I'll make the story really short. I put together a group and we traveled the United States looking at what all the various food retailers were doing. And of course, we saw people doing a much better job than we did in many, many instances. And that really opened up our mind. And then I took our team to Europe and traveled Europe, looking around and seeing what was going on in England and France and Germany. And that really opened up our mind. So then we could come back and talk about, well, who's beating us in this department? Who's beating us in this department? And how are they beating us? So we could look at kind of like the best in the world and the best in the United States to figure out, well, maybe we can't do all of that right now, but let's build a plan to get there. Department by department. Like for the meat department, what was their plan? The produce department, what was their plan? The deli bakery, what was their plan? And then not only that, we had to have a plan to hire and recruit and train management people to run those stores because we had never had any of those stores. We didn't have the people on our team already to run them. I mean, so it took an entirely different breed of person. We had to find people used to running those stores and bring them into our company and help them train the guys that we had to get up and ready to run stores like that.
Well, it's really quite a success story because Harris Teeter managed to survive as a brand, even though they were bought out at the corporate level by Kroger. And in most instances in the history of that industry, the buying company just converts everything to their pattern. Right. And in this case, they adopted they left intact the Harris Teeter model. Isn't that right?
Right. That's correct. That's correct.
And so it's a tribute to. So I don't know if people can fully appreciate that who are listening to this podcast, Joe, but that you were really there on the ground, so to speak, doing the original research that led to the transformation of what we think of today as a grocery store. Because my daughter goes into a grocery store and if there's a counter and a Japanese man making sushi,
absolutely,
in the store, right during the day, she thinks that's totally normal.
That's the way it's always been, right?
There's always like a sushi guy, just back there. And there's a seafood specialist in the back that's separate from the sushi guy who's not the meat guy. I mean, all that stuff is standard in large, grocery stores nowadays. And that was unheard of even when I was an adult, If
I can give you a visual image of, quote, how it used to be.
Yeah.
Regarding seafood, typically back then you had a meat counter that was low and you had all the red meat, and the red meat was in styrofoam trays and it had like some kind of cellophane wrapped around it. Well, that's the way the seafood was displayed. And the seafood would only take up like 3 or 4 feet in that whole meat case. And it was all just, what was called H&G, headed and gutted fish. The heads were taken off and the entrails were out. And they were just laid flat in a tray and overwrapped and had a price tag on it. That was it.
That's it. That's the whole thing. Get you some fish.
Yeah. Here's what we have for fish. Yeah. We have 2 varieties today.
And you can't see anything about them. They're just in a styrofoam thing with plastic over top of them and a big price tag there, right?
Absolutely. Just like the fresh meat that you buy, like a steak. That's where all the fish was. Now you see all this fish on ice that's fresh and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, you can see a couple of the fish that aren't cut, so you can see what it looked like beforehand, so you know what you're getting and that whole thing. Yeah. All right.
That tells you what it was like back then. And produce, Doug, was even the same way. Produce was what was called tray pack. It was in trays, like broccoli crowns would be on a plastic tray, just like a meat tray, overwrapped with cellophane with rice on it. And I would do this to get people to get the idea. I'd go into, as I was trying to get people to understand what I was after, I'd go into a store, walk in the produce department, and I would say, where's the produce? Where's the produce? I can't see it. There's so much glare coming off the cellophane. I can't even see the produce. Huh? So I wanted to, have like just the product out there by itself where people could see it and feel it and just be excited about it rather than all this plastic with the lights glaring in it.
Yes.
That's what it used to be like.
So it really was the experience, right? The shopping experience, meaning the sensory experience, even like what it looked like to the eyes and what it feels like to the fingers, right? It wasn't just a concept. It was an actual, you're trying to produce a physical experience for people.
Well, the concept was we were not selling just food. We were selling the food shopping experience.
The food shopping experience. Yeah.
So it was food, the best food we could get, and we wanted to have the best food in the market. So it was the food as well as the shopping experience, which included being an incredible place to shop, which included being an incredible place to work, because we had to have happy employees. We had to have happy employees that were, if someone asked for something, they'd be glad to take them over to where it was, rather than just say, well, it's over in aisle 635, whatever the case may be.
That's right.
So, it was a total paradigm shift.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of paradigm shifts, we had a paradigm shift as a country a couple of years ago with regard to race. And so I wanted to jump to what your response was at that time. It doesn't exactly go with groceries, except that it fits with our theme of what you've always been attuned to, which is what's the coming need. Right. What's the coming need? So George Floyd happened. The other events happened. What did you begin to see was needed that you wanted to do something about providing?
Well, I guess the first thing that I felt was needed was white people needed to have an education about what had gone on in our country that was not whitewashed. They needed to have an education and learn kind of like the true history of what's happened. And I grew up in the area that we didn't learn the true history. We learned the whitewashed history. Okay. So like first thing I did was my wife and I did our own civil rights trip, and that was amazing and really eye-opening. And I came back from that with a lot of energy to get involved in teaching white people what had really happened. Okay.
So let me ask you about that first trip. Did you take that someone else led, or did you go on your own tour? What did you do?
We went on our own. We just did it ourselves. What
did you go to see? Tell. So if somebody wants to do that, so you're not saying that you signed up for a tour. You're not saying you paid for a tour. You're saying you made a tour. You did a tour. So where did you stop? Or were the stops on the tour?
We got in the car and started driving. Okay. So we first went to Montgomery, and that's an amazing place. I can circle back and give details later if you want me to, but we first went to Montgomery, and then we went to Selma, Alabama, and walked over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is an amazing thing. And then we went to Birmingham, okay, and then we went to Memphis, and we're at the Lorraine Motel where Martin Luther King was killed. And then at the building across the street, a museum. And then we came back to Atlanta and saw things in Atlanta, and then we came home. So it was Montgomery, Selma, Birmingham, Memphis, Atlanta. It was fabulous. I mean, just really opened our mind's eyes. I forgot what city it was, but I got to stand behind the lectern from which Martin Luther King would deliver a sermon on occasion. So that was kind of sending chills down my back. We saw the church where the innocent young black girls were killed by the bomb that went off. We walked over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We just saw lots of things in our face about the horrible history of our country.
And what did that produce for you and for Maryland? What would you say? What did you say to each other about that experience?
It produced for me a real desire to educate people, to educate white people, particularly white men my age, who I call white dinosaurs. Okay, we're an old generation. We're going to be dead in another couple of years and gone. But a lot of us have to really reorient our beliefs about our country and about what's right and what's wrong and our history. We just really have to open our eyes and learn and change. So I came back with a passion to teach people, and I signed up and took a couple of courses myself that were really great. They're very, very professionally done. They were sponsored by, let me see if I can think of it here, Racial Equity Institute in Greensboro, Racial Equity Institute, REI. And they have offshoots with people teaching their courses, okay? And their courses are excellent. They're excellent. So as I was taking a couple of those courses, I was very driven to create some kind of entity that would allow me to run some of those courses and teach people. But as that was starting to happen, COVID came, okay? And then for me, all that fell aside. And as COVID, and I had something else going on at the same time, which I was doing all that home repair work in Lumberton and other places. As COVID was ending, I had been doing more of the home repair than I had been doing the teaching. I had not cracked how to get into the teaching, the REI classes. I had not been able to make that happen. Other people were doing that. And it's not that the doors were closed, but I just hadn't figured out how to open a new door in order to make that happen. So I spent more time doing the home repair work. And then as COVID happened, that got put on hold. And at the same time, these classes got put on hold because everything went Zoom, and all the people that were doing the teaching of the classes with all the what do you call it? Like, not the word charisma, but all the exuberation and the sharing and the learning from each other in a class. When you're talking about that stuff and really understanding it in a class of people and you're exchanging experiences, that's so much stronger than just doing it on Zoom.
Yes.
So everything slowed down with Zoom. And then I slowed down in terms of doing that work with Zoom also because my Christian Responders ministry that was doing the home repair, that had to stop because of COVID also. Because nobody wanted to be walking into houses where you didn't know anybody or being with a group of people that you didn't know if they had COVID or not, go do this repair work. So that was put on hold. So I came back from the Civil Rights Tour with a passion to teach, and I was never able to bring that to fruition. And my home repair work got put on the back burner. So for, I guess, 18 months, I wasn't really very active. And then I found a church that was doing furniture ministry that was going on during COVID. And this was a Methodist church. And so I touched base with them, and we figured out that I could move my people from the Christian Responders over to their group and join their group, which I did with the Methodist church. And then I've been really involved with them for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years now, about delivering furniture to people that don't have any furniture, that had a fire, that got wiped out in a storm, or whatever the case may be. So I've been very active in that.
So you were the grocery man, but now you're the furniture man, and you'll bring furniture to people who need furniture. I've never heard of that, a furniture ministry. Is that what you called it?
Oh, absolutely. Furniture ministry. Absolutely. Because think of these houses that are just blown out, okay? And it's a year before a house is rebuilt, or it's a year and a half. But when the house is rebuilt, or people get put in FEMA trailers, there's no furniture. They didn't have much furniture to begin with. And what they had was destroyed by the storm. And now they've got an apartment that's being subsidized, but somehow they've wound up in an apartment, or they wound up having a FEMA trailer, but they have no furniture. So we collect used furniture and distribute it to those people that need it. And they're just delighted to have it. They're delighted to have it. And so we've done that here in Charlotte for people that need it. And then we've also, I've sent, not I, but that furniture ministry have sent, I want to say 4 truckloads of furniture down to eastern North Carolina, two to a little town called Windsor in Berkeley County, which is on the eastern part of the country.
Yes.
And then two more truckloads down to a group called the Baptist on Mission in Red Springs, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And they take the furniture and distribute it to those people down there. So we've actually distributed 4 truckloads to eastern North Carolina. And another one went to Wilmington. I met a truck with a guy that had a ministry in Wilmington. I brought a truck down to Whiteville, and we met in the parking lot of a food line and took the product off of my truck and put it on his truck. And he took all that furniture to Wilmington, to give to people in Wilmington. So I think it's 5 truckloads that we've sent to the eastern part of the state. Yeah. So,
and now your latest project has to do with an interesting kind of Thanksgiving. So I'd like you to tell us about that a little bit.
Yes. Well, one of the great things about doing disaster response work is you meet people with amazingly strong faith. I mean, their faith is just so strong. Most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, they had hardly anything before the storm hit. Once the storm hit, they had nothing except their faith. Okay, before they had hardly anything except their faith.
Yeah,
after the storm hit, they have nothing but their faith. But here's the catch, Doug: their faith was all they need. Their faith is so strong that they can still be happy and be functioning and be reasonably okay after everything has happened. And they've got so much faith in God, God's going to help them out. And I think a lot of that has come from all their lives. They've had to have that kind of faith in God because maybe the circumstances of their lives were so hard on them that many times that may have been all they had. So when I'm doing that kind of work and I get around people that have that faith, that just really lifts me up. And when I'm able to absorb some of that faith in me, it just kind of goes from them to me. Okay?
Yeah.
And it wears off on me, I guess is the word, or moves
rubs off on you. Yeah.
Rubs off on me. Yeah. It rubs off on me. And so I absorb that and I get lifted in my own faith journey by just being around those people. So I've got lots of stories of how building relationships with those people have allowed me to go back and visit some of them, like after we finished doing their houses and things. But come to this new project, I was working on a home in New Bern, North Carolina, and I met a woman who the home was being made for her, it was being repaired for her. Her son was footing most of the bill, and of course, a lot of it was free and volunteer work. I mean, a lot of the materials were coming free from the Baptists, and the volunteers were Methodists and other people.
Okay.
But I just had several conversations with this woman of immense faith. She was a cancer survivor and had led a hard life, but she was A-okay with it. She was A-okay. She was very comfortable with herself, very comfortable with her family, had done a marvelous job in raising her kids, okay? And her faith wore off on me quite a bit. And at the end of that time we were working there, another person on the trip had said, well, why don't we all come back and have like a Brunswick stew meal together, you know? And so we all agreed and said, yeah, that'd be great. And I like that. And so I wanted to participate with that. But then as time went around, the people that had suggested that, they said they could no longer come. And that was just going to fall off. But I didn't want that idea to fall off. So I picked it up and called the woman that we had that conversation with and said, let's not let this thing die. I mean, just because they can't make it, you know, let's let you and me get together and start it. And how do you feel about having like a pre-Thanksgiving meal, a community Thanksgiving, being thankful for all of our many blessings? And so she liked that. And her faith is what really got the whole thing started. And so when I called her and said, do you think we could do this? And she says, oh, yes, sir, we can do it. We can make it happen. And I'm good to go. You know, I am good to go. And so right now, I've got 15 people lined up to go to New Bern, North Carolina on November 13th. We're going to stay at the Baptist on Mission facility. The church that we'll be at is called the United Worship Center of New Bern. It's an African-American church. And so we will cook turkeys and hams with the congregation of that church. They're the ones that will show us what to do because they'll be doing all the legwork before we get down there. Yeah. But I think some of the cooking will actually be done in the Baptist on Mission facility because they have nice kitchen facilities. So we're all going to be cooking together and working together and getting to know each other. And then on Sunday, we will have a 11 o'clock church service together in their church. And then after the church service, we'll go over to one of their buildings. I think they call it their Omega Hall. And we'll have the pre-Thanksgiving meal there where we count our blessings as a community. And we give thanks for people of different backgrounds being able to come together and share things. So that is the next project I'm working on right now.
And Joe, tell me why that's so important to you.
All right. So can I cut to the chase?
Yes.
It's important to me because, again, being a white guy, an old white dinosaur, I know of people that still do not have a high regard for Black people, or else for African American people, or else they just don't know anything about them. And it's important to me to build relationships between white folks and African American folks. It's important for me to break down the barriers of misunderstanding and all the terrible things that have gone on, and to build friendships and trust and relationships between those groups of people. And I found that every time I would take people to Lumberton or elsewhere to work on houses, that when you get us all in the same room, we get working with each other, we get to know each other as people, all this other baggage goes away, and people would have what I call a transformative experience. When they go back to Charlotte, they're not the same person they were when they went down there. Their views, their understanding, their acceptance, their patience, their understanding of they've been wrong a lot of the time in their own thinking, all that is something new for them, and they go back with a very, very different experience or a different personality, if you will. So I really get lifted by seeing people have a transformative experience. And so what I'm driven to do is set up situations that cause or allow people to have transformative experiences. And so like doing a Thanksgiving meal together and cooking together and rubbing shoulders together and working together, I mean, that's going to be great. People are going to get to know each other on an individual basis and have a much better understanding when they go back. And I'm hopeful that this relationship will grow, and maybe we'll do it again next year, or maybe it becomes an annual thing. We'll just let God decide where it goes. We don't know where it's going to go. But going back to Lumberton for a minute and giving you the transformative experience idea, I would say to the people that I brought down there, I would say, if you go back to Charlotte and you say to your husband, or the husband, often the mom and the daughter would come. I would say, if you go back to Charlotte and you say to your husband and son, we need to send another check down to those people in Dewburn, then I've had a bad experience. You've had a bad experience. Okay? But if you go back to Charlotte and you say, we need to get Letitia the clothes she needs for her new baby, then you've had a good experience, because now you have a one-on-one relationship, and you're worried that Letitia doesn't have the clothes that she needs for her baby, rather than just feeling guilty if you don't write another check. It's become personal. So that's the kind of thing I'm kind of like driven to do, is to give people the opportunity to have a personal experience that changes them forever. And they go home and they talk to they and their kids have a different conversation. And they're now talking, but some of these kids are upset because their friends have a brand new BMW and they don't have one. Okay. But they come down, they have this kind of experience, and they go back, and it's an entirely different conversation that they've now been introduced into. I just like setting up opportunities for people of different backgrounds, different beliefs, particularly different beliefs about the other side. I like setting up situations where they get to know each other and realize that all those beliefs are just rubbish, that we're all the same, and you just got to get rid of that stuff and get to know people. That turns me on to see that happen.
Well, it turns us on to have you express yourself this way and discover this. And so really thank you, Joe, for representing the possibility of a transformation.
Absolutely.
But personally, your transformation from, what you described as your corporate executive mentality to what you're now in action about and what you're now committed to. Just thanks for being a stand for that transformation in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. And, we'll look forward to seeing you in the future. And good luck with all your great works.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for listening to Empowering Leadership. If you enjoyed this episode, take a moment to subscribe for free on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a rating and a review so that other leaders like yourself can find us. Sign up for Dorrier Underwood's email newsletter by visiting us at dorrierunderwood.com. Dorrier Underwood serves visionary companies who are serious about realizing their dreams and who are unwilling to settle for incremental results. Our clients are looking for breakthrough results and a deeper sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. To learn more, visit us at dorrierunderwood.com. That's it for now. Go forth and be amazing and take good care of your people. Empowering Leadership is produced by Dorrier Underwood and Andy Go of Gojo Studios.